we are Group 3, and our topic was on the denial of disability. I'm Tawnee, GreenRiver.
I'm Claudio, Sanchez.
And I'm Gabby, Vecchio.
And our topic was based on an article by Sally French entitled, "Can You See the Rainbow?" Thanks. And so at a very young age, Sally was basically trained to deny her disability and claim that she saw things that she didn't, things that her family wanted her to see that she didn't. And so this denial of her disability was a particular response to the situations that she was forced to be in. And so as she grew up in a special school, as she called it, there were expectations for her to be this superhuman and to be grateful for every opportunity she had and for all of the other opportunities to become better in her partial blindness disability. And so in this disability, she was basically denied the right to allow it. And so in denying this disability, she also denied the improvements that she made to the doctors and to the teachers. And she also had to deny the painful feelings that came with being in these situations that she didn't want to be in. And basically this just benefited the doctors who thought they were doing what was right and what was helping Sally, and the teachers who thought they were helping Sally, and her family members who thought they were helping. And this denial made them feel better. And then as she went on into the workforce, she strived for equal opportunity, meaning that she had to become this superhuman in denying her disability in order to be accepted into the workforce. And so basically all her life she was denying disability, and her disability was being defined by others, and there were several effects to that.
So I broke down the effects into two parts: self-denial, which we see here, and denying someone else's disability. So, like in Sally's case, self-denial, it was a method used by her in order to avoid others' anxiety and disappointment. It was kind of to shield her from any disbelief or disapproval that anyone else had about her disability. For example, she was partially blind, so she wasn't completely blind, but she would occasionally need the assistance of a cane. So if she were to use her cane to walk around, let's say in the train, if she would sit down, she wouldn't pick up a book and start reading, because this would make people feel uncomfortable, as if she's faking her disability. Another reason for this is to live up to the normalcy of everyday life, or at least of able people. For example, if her relatives would usually point out a certain object in the room and ask her if she saw it. Being partially blind, she would not be able to see it, though she would lie just to avoid any tension or anything that denying or accepting her disability would cause. In turn, this would avoid spoiling others' fun. So it seems as if self-denial is a way, or it seems as if self-denial of disability is linked to thinking that individuals with disabilities view themselves as a problem, when in reality it's society that needs to change and become more inclusive and accepting. And the other factor of this is denying someone else's disability and the effects of that. So in rejecting someone's disability, you reject their identity, as disability is is a key identifier in someone's identity, such as race or gender. So in rejecting that identity, you're rejecting who they really are. You're also setting them up to a higher standard, which they may physically not be able to achieve. As Tawnee had mentioned, the superhuman. It also limits communication. This is more in connection with deafness. I read an article by Rozek in which a family denied their child's deafness. He was 3 years old, so they never learned sign language, nor did they learn how to communicate properly with him. So they would talk to him as if he could hear. And finally, just in denying people's disabilities, you cause stress, anxiety, and pressure, which those people do not need. And I will now turn over to Gabby as she discusses what we can do to stop that.
Thanks. Alright, just like Tawnee and Claudio said, denying a person's disability can deny part of their identity. And that can lead to the person feeling like people aren't treating them like they're a full, whole human being or a complex individual with lots of different aspects to their identity, and that people seem like they're trying to ignore a part of them that they identify strongly with. So a big thing that society can do to help people with disabilities is not make assumptions about people, and that's a good way to start out lots of interactions is by going in with a positive, open mind. So here are some points that lots of people assume about people with disabilities. It's from a conglomeration of different articles and PDFs and handbooks from Wikipedia. And so lots of commonly assumed things when people meet someone with disabilities is that they want or require assistance with everyday life. Usually people with disabilities grow up or they've had disabilities for a long time, so they know how to go through their day. They don't need assistance with little things like crossing the street or reaching for something. And then another thing that people assume often is that a person with one kind of disability has other kinds of disabilities, and this is commonly seen in people who use wheelchairs or powered wheelchairs, that since they can't move their legs, they probably have some kind of cognitive impairment also, when in reality they could just be paralyzed and not have any other kind of cognitive disabilities. Also, a big assumption that people make is that a person with disabilities is dissatisfied with their quality of life. And that's a really impersonal assumption to make about anyone, seeing that, like, if someone is disabled, you don't think that their quality of life is inherently bad because of their disability. So that's a really bad assumption to make also. And all of these can be avoided if you go into an interaction with an open mind and don't assume anything negative about disabilities or stereotypes you may see in the media about disabilities. Another big topic for accepting people with disabilities into culture is using the correct language and behavior. So lots of articles and sources say that the best thing to do is use people first language. This would be saying things like a person with disabilities or a person with autism, a person who is paralyzed, as opposed to saying a disabled person, an autistic person, a paraplegic person. And this brings the focus more towards the positive parts of their identity, which can just be, traits that everyone would want to know about instead of focusing on something that is deemed as a negative in society. So another point is don't try to assist anyone without asking first. That's something that's really invasive and not a nice thing to do to anyone. Even if you think they look like they need help, you should always ask. And then as a culture, we should include everyone in conversation and projects and meetings. That goes for like the workplace or in school. You want to make sure everyone has a voice and everyone feels included. And then another part of that is seeking diversity in the media, art, and everyday life. So lots of times there are art shows with people who have autism and they make art, or people with Down syndrome. And that's a good way to kind of expose yourself to just daily life experiences of people with disabilities. And then also seeing films or movies with people with disabilities as main actors and actresses. That's a good way of making sure representation encompasses all different areas of life, and representation does matter because once you see something happening out in the world, you can kind of incorporate it into your life and stop making assumptions that could be seen as negative. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.